Hello, I thought I'd do a video on Garuda for UwU, and just to explain what to do for this phase, how to handle awakening Garuda, and all that jazz really. This video is obviously based on what my group did during our clears and re-clears, but I'll explain other ways of how you can handle each part, just in case your group decides to do it a different way. So, first of all, we pulled Garuda north, and this is ready for the first mechanic that will go out. So how we handled this was that the healer would get a marker on their head, so they would stand at the back, over here, hopefully you can see, and then we had the off-tank stood at the very front of the line behind Garuda, popping a magical cooldown ideally. So I did this on Paladin, but for Dark Knight obviously it'd be like Dark Mind and TBN. Then we had everyone else in a line behind for the damage that will go out. Meanwhile, the main tank would have to deal with a tank buster, which is Slipstream. So what will happen there is that the main tank will pop a cooldown and just have to move away from Garuda. Otherwise, if they get caught in the Slipstream in the front, they'll be stunned. It's kind of a pain. Okay, so have the line, Slipstream goes out, and then the line damage. After that, we then move the boss south. This is because of what happens with the marker. There'll be a tornado that will pop out here, which if you're stuck in it, you'll die. So we want to avoid that. And so you can still attack the boss. The next major part is with the plumes and the spiny plume. So what will happen here is that each DPS will be tethered to a purple plume. They'll need to get those down ASAP to avoid being put to sleep. They'll do AoE damage, everyone will be put to sleep, and you might as well wipe it because there's no point. The green spiny plume should be left to the off tank. So the off tank will need to get aggro on that first, so provoke it and use their so like shield lob or whatever, to make sure they get aggro there. If a DPS or a healer gets it, and the initial tank buster that will hit when spiny plume comes in hits anyone else, they'll die, so you might as well just wipe it. Also in that phase there'll be another Slipstream on the main tank, so they'll need to pop a cooldown and dodge, as you'll be able to see here. So there goes the tank. So what ideally you need to all use AoE damage, and the main tank, the off tank, sorry, should mainly be damaging the spiny plume. Obviously they can use their AoE damage too, but you don't want to damage the spiny plume down too quickly, because otherwise it affects how the next phase goes with awakening Garuda. So AoE damage and all of that. Make sure you don't do too much AoE so they kill spiny, but make sure it kills the plumes. And then you move. The reason why you move is because every time Garuda screams, you run away, and these AoE patterns will form on the floor. There'll be feathers coming down, and if you get caught in those, you'll get a wind debuff. If you stand in all of these, you're dead. But if you get caught in, say, one, you can survive it because you'll just get one wind debuff, and your healers can keep healing you up. Obviously, it's not ideal, but, you know, it is what it is. So then, ideally you want it so that then everyone who doesn't have the spiny moves the same direction, ideally. And spiny plume will follow the off tanks, so you want to move a little bit, and then you can kill the spiny. that's perfect timing then for the mechanic that's coming up next, which is important with Awakening Garuda. Now, what you do on this part will also affect what happens in Ultima as well. You can do it in a certain order that you decide to do, but we decided that we'd have Group 1 being the main tank, the 2 healers, and the dancer going in first into the bubble. Then after that, we will have the off tank going straight after to not only dish out the AoE damage that will go out, but also to help with collecting a stack. Then after that, we'll have DPS 1 go in, which will be our samurai in this case, and then DPS 2, which in this case will be our ninja. The only one that doesn't cleanse in the bubble is the summoner. It's very important because this will affect the fates later on. So I'll show you what you do. You stand outside of the AoE bubble and it'll cast. Group 1 goes in straight away, and then the off tank. You stand in, you wait for friction, and then everyone goes out from Group 1. Each friction will cause AoE damage, so you'll need to be topped up quickly, because each time that then the DPS goes into the bubble, it'll cause more AoE damage, and you don't want anyone to die. So I would recommend Reprisal, make sure everyone's shielded and healed, and all that jazz. So friction 2 will go off. Then after that, it's safe for DPS 1 to go in, as you can see there. You literally just need to go into the bubble and out. That's it. And as you can see, they've now got 2 stacks. You need to make sure that Garuda has 3 stacks in order to be awoken. And then there's DPS 2. And as you can see, the stacks here change. And the only person that didn't go in was our summoner. And there we go. Stacks 3, so that will definitely awaken Garuda. After that, it will come out, you can do a little bit of damage, and then there'll be another scream, so you move. Don't have to move. For safety, you move obviously you can move as far as you can, but you don't need to really move that far, you just kind of need to move out of melee range for that. Afterwards, there'll be another AoE. So more shields and heals. Reprisal definitely needed there. So you can do some more damage, a bit more downtime. And then the sisters will come in, indicating that it'll be the next phase. So once they move and scream, you move. Now this part, just see if I can rewind it a little bit. It's very important. Missed that bit. Okay, there we go. So for this part, you'll want the healers and the DPS to stand in the middle, because they'll get the same marker above their heads as what they got in the first phase. And meanwhile, the sisters will appear on the outside of the arena. So your tanks will deal with this. So we did it in a priority order, whereby the main tank will always take on the sister that's at A, D or C, whereas the off tank will always prioritise B, C or D. That's how we did it. You may come up with a different strat, that's fine. So what will happen here is that while everyone is stood in the middle and needs shields and heals, the main tank will take Garuda to one of the sides, just to make sure that they're out of the way for the Wicked Will that they're going to do. And then there'll be a blue circle around the outside, so the tanks don't want to be in that, but they want to be sort of stood here-ish, with a cooldown, again a magical one, so like Dark Mind for example. You can TBN the main tank or the other tank if you want, and that'll be enough for cooldown wise. So as you can see, Garuda gets placed there for safety. The main tank will go for A1 because that's where they're closest. Off tank will get the one at C. Everyone else stood in the middle. So you can see the blue outside is not safe. There's Wicked Wheel. Move in. And then straight after there'll be a Scream, so you'll have to move. Now the idea here for uptime is to move to where Garuda is. For uptime. Like that. There'll be tornadoes again and they're not safe. After that you want to be in the middle. Now plumes will reappear. And there'll be a sister at D and a sister at B. It depends on what order you go in, for whoever wants which tether. But you have to get the DPS that did not go into the bubble in the first phase would need to take one of these tethers. It's up to you who takes the other tether, but preferably it's a tank. In this case, we did it whereby the main tank took the tether, but you can do it, and I would personally recommend that the off tank takes it just for positioning of Garuda. So that'll happen. All the DPS would need to stand in the middle for the plumes, and it's the same phase as before. You've got to get them down ASAP. The tank, the DPS with the tether, I believe they went to D for our group. They will also get a plume, so they'll need to DPS them ASAP too. They won't get caught because of where they stand. They won't get caught in any of the AoEs that the group will do. So they'll probably they might need some extra help there. So just be aware. With regards to the tethers, now the outside is once again not going to be safe, but you don't want to be stood so close that everyone else will get the damage. So what you kind of need to do is, I'd say, stand roughly about here-ish with the tether, just to double check that you're all alright. While that's all going off, and there's so much carnage happening already, Garuda will once again do a slipstream tank buster, which is preferably why we had the off tank take the tether, but again, in our group we didn't do that, but again, that's alright. And then after all of that goes off, there'll be another AoE damage, so shields and heals, followed by a Scream. Now it sounds a lot, and initially it is, but it isn't, I guess, if that makes sense. So let's play it. So the plumes will all appear in the middle. Unfortunately, due to my camera angle, you can't see the tether. Actually you can. Okay, never mind. Okay, so the two tethers will pop out. So as you can see, we've got our summoner who didn't go into the bubble, takes their plume and their tether. We've got the main tank there taking their other tether, and Garuda. So what happen? The tethers will do the damage, but they're far enough away so that then nobody in the middle will get hurt. So that's buzzing. Now at this stage, Garuda is now awoken. You've done the mechanic correctly. Congratulations. So that'll go off, and then there'll be the Scream, so everyone runs away. Now this is the final phase. So how we did it is that we slowed down just because then with killing Garuda, just because then we knew that all our cooldowns will be up in time for Ultima. Obviously it depends on what your group wants to do, how quickly you kill it and stuff like that. So what will happen is there'll be another tank buster on the main tank. Everyone groups up behind for damaging. There's a slipstream that goes out. So then we stopped DPSing until the Wicked Wheel. So with Wicked Wheel, you want to go instantly out while that's going off, and then you want to run straight back in, because the outside will no longer be safe and you'll die. So you straight out and go straight back in, and they'll die. So as you can see, we killed Garuda then, and probably without any deaths in first phase, you'll probably kill it by that point too. But if you don't, what will then happen was there'll be a tank buster, slightly different from before. So what will happen is that the tank will dodge the slipstream again, but they'll move in with the line with the group, so that then the whole group takes that tank buster, and it's a lot easier for the heals and everything. So then that'll happen. And after that, because Garuda was awoken, there's a light puddle that will appear, which we did it in the order whereby our healer took the first one and everyone else grouped up in the middle, ready for Ifrit. So once they've got that, stood in it for a few seconds, everyone pops sprint. Now what will happen is that each of these corners will appear with a little safe spot, possibly. Some of these won't. So what you have to do is you have to look and see where Ifrit lands. Now it's random where he lands each time. You'll hear him land, but you want to quickly turn your camera and look to see. So for example, if Ifrit lands at A, the only two safe spots it could be is D or B. Now you won't see where the safe spot is for a few seconds until the fire puddles appear, and then you'll look either side to see if the puddle here is over this bit here at D, then you know that's not safe and you've got to run to B. Now you can be fine with if you're a tank, you can take one of these hits, but everyone else will die. If you're a tank, take one, but if you take another one, you're dead. So Ifrit was at A at this point, so that's great. So everyone stacks mid, pops sprint. The puddles will appear. We can see nice and clear that D is the safe spot, so we quickly run to D. Ifrit will charge. You wait until the fire explosion, and then you go in the middle. And so that's it now for Garuda, but I've got other videos as well for Ifrit, Titan, the LB Freeze, and each stage of Ultima. So yeah, any questions, please do drop me a message and I'll be happy to help.